Welcome everybody. My name is Tony Hall from Navigator Consulting. This is Consultants Table. Thank you very much for being here. We expect around 40 people on this session, which is fantastic. We also run our Captain's Table group for owners of recruitment companies, but this is advanced consulting skills really for experienced recruiters, recruiters just starting out. It's my pleasure to introduce Adele Last, who is a very experienced recruiter. She's been a manager, she's been a trainer, she's a fantastic presenter. She will inspire you on selling exclusivity. Adele, really looking forward to hearing from you today.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for the introduction, Tony. And just checking sound, if everyone can hear me, please speak up if you can't, or if you are having difficulty with any of the sound, let Tony know in the chat. If any of you have been in my presentations before, you'll know that I do invite you to turn your camera on. It's all right, we're all working from home. We're expecting lots of hoodies and the like, so don't be shy, don't be afraid. If you're back in the office, even better. I do like to see faces, so please feel free to turn your cameras on, turn your sound to mute. It makes us all feel like we're still sort of in the same room together, so don't be shy of that. The other thing I'm going to ask you to do today is that, thanks to those of you, hello everyone that's putting their cameras on, thank you. It makes me feel like I'm not sitting in a black room talking to a black dot by myself if I can see your faces. So I appreciate that very much. Thanks very much for joining me. What I am going to do today as part of this session, we're going to do a little bit of an exercise. We're going to do a bit of planning towards this program for yourself. So what I will ask you to have is a pen and a notepad. So a piece of paper and a pen, something to write on for yourself. It's only for yourself. You won't need to share any of the information that you're recording, so don't be fearful of that. But I want to try and make this a reasonably practical session to get you started in this mindset in terms of selling exclusively. So let's jump in now into the presentation. Please put any questions in the chat as we go along. If you wish to ask a question through the presentation, I usually zip through pretty fast for those of you that have come along for the ride before. There's not often a lot of pauses in my breath, so I apologize if I skip over, but pop it in the chat so we come back to it at the end, or hold it to the end. And I have allowed extra time today for questions, which again, I don't often get to do because I put too much in the presentation. So I've shortened it a little bit, allowing lots of time for conversation. As Tony said, we've got about 40 experienced recruiters and managers on this call. Let's try and make use of that opportunity as well from a networking perspective, and asking some of the questions and advice that we could share around. All right, so I shall get into it now. And just do a quick introduction. Tony did introduce me, but I'll just give you another quick overview. My name is Adele Last. I run a business called Career Lasso. I'm involved in training to the recruitment industry, as well as some operational consultancy services. And I work with Tony at Navigator to deliver this program to, as I said, recruitment managers, and some owners are on the call as well. And it's a nice partner program to the Captain's Table that Tony's been running for years. So the idea of today is about polishing skills you may already have. For some of you, maybe learning new skills, and for sharing ideas and information about better ways to do things. So it's always about improvement. So well done to you for booking in yourself today for your own development and improvement. The next one I'm going to throw out here to everybody, and this I've done before with abysmal results, let me tell you. I've thrown to the floor before and I get crickets, so please don't leave me hanging there. Chuck it in the chat, please. I want to know who you are. So what I mean by that is, just so that I can tailor some of the examples through the program, through the session today, I just want to know the kinds of recruitment. So I've got the names of your companies in a lot of cases, but it's not always obvious to me unless your agency is called medical recruitment. I don't always know the kind of recruitment that you're doing. So pop it in the chat for me now, please. Just give me an idea of the kinds of industries that we've got on the call, whether it's industry sector, an industry that you focus on, a sector, types of roles, that kind of information. So if you can each pop that in the chat at some point. As I said, I'm going to keep an eye there and make sure that as I said, I can tailor it as best as possible. Did anyone want to speak then as well? Does anyone want to just say anything there? No. All right. No. Okay, good. And now I'll let you know too, I try to watch the screen with the videos, and so I have the presentation below me here as well. So don't get frightened if you think, why should you keep looking down like that? The copy of the presentation I can't see because I can see your faces, so I've got a copy down here, just to let you know why I keep potentially looking down. I'm not checking my phone, I promise. All right, on to the first slide. So thank you. Did we get some comments in there, Tony? The chat's gone for me. I think it's gone to you. So.
That was crickets. You can't see chat? Okay, no, we got everyone. The first one was from Dan. He does BS, and we'll just have to guess what that is.
Okay.
We've got industrial construction. We've got accounting, banking, finance, business support from Sarah. We've got commercial fit out, Isabel, engineering, water, mining, environmental, civil. You've got some good ones here: software engineering, residential housing, property construction, interior design, creatives, advertising, branding, IT, ICT, construction, building services, administration. I think almost every sector is represented here.
Right.
Well,
okay,
all the big ones.
All right. That's good. It keeps it nice and broad. And we'll take BS to be business support, not bullshit. Is that all right? The first one. All right, let's just do a bit of clarity around what exclusivity is about, and I've got an explanation there, a definition there. Agreement to work to the exclusion of others, an individual arrangement to work one-on-one. That's the kind of dictionary definition. Retained business, you'll hear exclusive and retained potentially interchanged as words. Retained business is slightly different. It's where you actually charge part payment or a retainer as you carry out the exclusive work. So the point I want to make is you can have exclusivity without a retainer. So we want to aim for the retainer. That's the ultimate aim, but exclusivity is pretty good too. So think about that in each of your different markets as we work our way through. So retained business is what we're looking at ideally, but we'll take exclusivity as well. We'll look through both of those. I just wanted to define that for everyone so that we know we're on the same page. Who should you work with in an exclusive arrangement? Well, my answer is everyone. And as Tony said at the top of the call, no recruiter should be working for free. And contingent recruitment, the way we have the model set up, we do just that. As you know, we do a lot of work. We're doing a lot of providing a lot of support and services to our client without any fee until the placement's made. So, we want to move away from that. Whoever set up the industry like that, I'd like to grab them around the throat, really. Why do we not set ourselves up as we try to now, which is more of a business consultancy service where you would never provide that service for free? Certainly a lawyer doesn't do that. An accountant doesn't do that. You don't get them to, you don't get your accountant to prepare your tax return. And then depending on how much they get you pay them. It doesn't work that way. You're paying them for the work they do in getting the outcome. Recruitment needs to be that way always with everyone. So that's my aim for you. My wish for you is it should be with every client. We're going to talk some specifics about how to sell it. So the first part of selling it is looking for the ideal client. There are clients that are ideal for an exclusive arrangement, sometimes more than others. I'd like to think it's every client, but in a lot of cases, you want to pick out that ideal one. What does the ideal client look like? It's a relationship you have with a client that's built on trust. You'd like to think all of them are, but we all know the reality is sometimes we're treated a bit more transactionally. We're not treated as an advisor in some cases. So important to think about clients that actually trust your advice. You want a history of proven results, and that comes with the trust, obviously. If you've been able to successfully place candidates with that agency, with that organisation as an agency over a long period of time, repeatedly, the candidates have stayed, all of those elements as a recruiter, we know, build that history of proven results. So you want to look for a client where you've got that as well. It may not be a long time. You might have only been working with them for 12 months, but where you've got some history and you've proven yourself. It's a much easier sell in that sense. You really ideally want to look for clients that have roles in your sweet spot. And what I mean by that is your area of expertise or specialization. It's going to be much easier for you to sell this and much more powerful result if you're working in the area where you are the expert, where you're able to access candidates and source people and your network is strong. It's not impossible to do it in a new market. It's just much harder. So I'm trying to show you the easiest ways to set this up if you haven't got many exclusive arrangements. So find your sweet spot and narrow it down. I challenge you to get pretty narrow with it. It might be a certain number of roles that you want to narrow it down to, because some of you are working industry based. So if you're working all of construction, what are the specific roles within that you're going to target clients that have roles in that space as your ideal client for exclusivity. And the ideal client in general, but specifically for this, is time poor. You want a client that is not able to do the process themselves, has failed at the process, doesn't have the internal HR recruitment support ideally to do this. So that's the ideal kind of client. Trust, results, sweet spot, and is time poor. But it can be a really great way, exclusivity can be a really great way of starting a new client out. So if you think of a new client who first approaches you and says, okay, I've got this need and I want to talk to you about it. You guys seem to be the experts in the space, or I found your details online. How do we go about this? How does it work? You want to go in from that point, from that new client relationship, you want to set it up as an exclusive arrangement from the start, ideally. So whilst I've talked about identifying an ideal client that would come from your existing client base, you also want to think about this being the new normal, like we talk about. This is how we do business. This is the, okay? Too often than not, we go in and we say, well, we can do this, or we can do this. You know, we can provide you this service this way, but there's there's no fee. We're so used to that sales pitch of it being able to get across the line that way. Have I got sound issues, Tony? I'm trying to just slow down my speech.
We've got you back now. And
okay.
Yep, you're all good.
Yep, I saw it flash up and I just slowed my speech, so hopefully you catch every second word. Okay, thank you for that. So what I'm trying to say there is we too often go in selling the contingent service, which is what we're most familiar with and what we think is easier. It is an easier sell because you're saying to the client, engage me and don't pay me anything. Give it to me. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Give it to me. That's the easy sell, guys. That's the way out. Start with exclusive. This is how we work. And if the client says, oh, I don't know if I can pay a fee up front, or I don't know about the working with you on your own, what if you can't fill it? Then you can say, well, there are other options, and work down from that. So always, like you would with negotiation, you start at the top and you strip away. You never start with your bottom offer. You don't say, this is what I'll accept as a bare minimum, and now I'm going to try and sell you the premium service. It doesn't work that way, right? You've got to sell the premium service first. That's the first tip of the day. There you go. All right, moving on to the next slide. The next one is the nitty-gritty really of selling. So we've talked about identifying the ideal client, and then I want to talk you through the points in terms of actually selling it. I've worked blue collar industrial, I've worked white collar business support, I've worked IT, I've worked safety, I've worked executive. So I've got a really broad background myself, and so I understand where some markets where it does work better than others, but I honestly can tell you hand on heart that I have never had trouble selling exclusivity myself. And I'm going to teach you what I know. So hopefully, and I'm not talking 10 years ago when I recruited. Okay. I was recruiting up until, and I still am up until now. So I do contract positions, but my last full-time role was the end of last year. So I just want to, say that to you as well. Sometimes there's trainers that you're hearing that have done this 10 years ago and you think, well, the market's different now. I get that, but I'm talking about real life right now. Okay, so how to sell it. So the main aim, you've got to think about the main aim of your client. There aim is to fill their vacancy at the end of the day when they're dealing with you. They've got a whole million other aims that they're trying to achieve, but when they're connecting with you, their main point is, I just need to fill this vacancy. So you've got to think like they do. You've got to put yourself in the client's shoes, and you've got to approach it with this model called customer centricity, customer-centric solution. Sometimes human centricity it's called as well. This is a model. It's not new. It's got a new name, but it's not new, but it's about thinking about putting yourself in the customer's shoes and thinking about what the customer wants. Okay, it's a powerful way to sell, and a lot of great salespeople do this naturally and automatically. They automatically start thinking like the customer and say, well, what does this customer want, and how will I offer what it is that they want so that I can give them the best, the best solution, rather than the package deal that I've got available here. So you really want to think about sitting down and thinking about that ideal client, and then put yourself in their shoes and understand what is it that they're trying to do. What would they like? What kind of service would they like? What kind of offering is going to, really excite them? And I've got some options here that I've listed for you. So I want you to think about a new recruitment model option. I've got this sticky note on the side that it says, accepting new clients. I saw this recently actually on LinkedIn, and the industry wasn't recruitment related, but I thought this is a really cool idea. What if we turned this on our head, and what if we said to clients, we're now accepting you? Yeah, we're not out there hunting you down, client. We now have a vacancy in our calendar to work with you to help you solve that problem. And it's that kind of level of service, if you think about it. It's just turning it on its head. I know that might be a hard sell in some industries, but think about these alternate solutions, these alternate ways that the client may think to themselves, well, this is really, interesting. And the element of exclusivity in general does that. It's human nature. It's that FOMO, right? We don't want to miss out. There's something exclusive over there. I'll pay extra for that. Or I will choose that brand because it's got an exclusive element. Yeah, only certain people can have that. And so I want it more, and I'll pay more for it. And that's what you're trying to do by saying, we only deal with a certain number of clients at any one time because we have a very high service level, and we're currently accepting new clients if you wish to work with us. Okay, you're always going to be accepting new clients. We know that. But you make it sound exclusive. Think about your client to consultant ratio. Think again, put yourself in the client's shoes about what kind of service they want. They want something that's very personal and potentially really high touch. They don't want to deal with lots of different people within the organization once they've built some trust with you. You may have to work with the rest of your team. You may have other people supporting you, but think about that high client to consultant ratio in terms of making sure that not high, it's actually low consultant client to consultant ratio, so that your consultants can actually focus on giving really high quality service to a fewer number of clients instead of volume. And in this market, we can do that, right? Because we've got fewer clients now, by default. Where there's not as many clients out there working with us. So now is a great time to start honing this customer-centric solution. What kind of level of service can I provide when I have fewer clients to deal with? That's what I want you to think about in selling exclusivity. We all have a guarantee. Most of us have a guarantee in our terms. But it's guaranteed success as well with exclusivity. So I'm not talking here about your replacement guarantee. I'm talking here about the fact that in an exclusive arrangement, the fee is tied to the success because it's exclusive, meaning no one else is working on it. You'll keep going until it's filled. So it's a point to make out to the client to say, unlike when you list a job with lots of agencies, of course, if you list this one exclusively with me, you just get me working on it all the time, full time, until it's filled. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful message to send to the client. So it's guaranteed success. And think about how you could tie that into the terms around exclusivity. If you list it with us exclusively, it's guaranteed success. We are going to keep working on it until you tell us otherwise. And I used that example earlier about the accountant. A similar example here is about positioning yourself as providing that expert advice. So position yourself to the client that, you know, you are the expert in that space. That's why they need to work with you and you alone. That there may be other competitors out there, but on this assignment, they're going to work with you exclusively. It's the same model that they use in real estate. And this is one sector that got this right, okay? For the most part, most of us don't multi-list a property for sale. If you've ever sold a property, you bought one, you've rented one, the property is listed with one agent. There's actually no rule to say, there's no law to say you can't list it with more than one real estate agent, but we just don't to sell the property. You don't want different agents coming through the house. You don't want people from all over the place. What you want is one person working solely with you on your property to bring you the best buyer and bring you the best price. That's the same argument we need to be having with clients in selling this. Work with one consultant exclusively who gets to know you and know the role and know exactly what you're looking for, and you're going to get a better outcome. I didn't to ask questions through. I did say if you need to ask questions, that I'm having a pause minute there, but if you need to ask a question, pop it in the chat. I can't see it, so Tony, feel free to read out if there are any questions, or we can hold them to the end. Obviously, when you're selling, you want to pitch the benefits, you know, so features and benefits. We kind of talked a little bit there about the features element of some of the new things you could offer a client. These are some of the benefits. So when you are selling it, these are the points you need to make sure that you're emphasizing to the client. So exclusivity in a recruitment assignment can actually create a time saving. And what I mean by that is that it actually will end up with a better result, potentially quicker. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but generally it's a better result quicker, which actually is more effective. It lasts longer. It's a better fit of candidate. And the reason for that is because if you have the role exclusively, you're able to spend more time making sure you've got the right fit, more time taking the job brief from the client, more time matching the skills, more time exploring and having detailed conversations with candidates. So you're not in such a rush trying to beat the clock all the time like we are with contingent work when you have it exclusively. You can slow it down a little bit, not so that it's not effective, but enough that you can provide a much higher quality service. And that's what you want to, you know, sell to the client as a benefit of why they should go exclusively with you. You can do a real comprehensive database campaign. And what I mean by that is not just a quick search, grab the top 5, shoot out of top 25 and shoot out a bulk email and cross your fingers and hope for the best, or make a few odd calls here and there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a comprehensive campaign where you would interrogate your database the same way you might do on LinkedIn or on Seek Talent Search. Right, where you're actually going in and having a look at the people that you've registered before, you've spoken to before, that have applied before, and really trying to understand if you've got any talent that matches the job, contacting people properly and having good conversations with them. So it allows you time to do that. And as I said, that's a much better outcome. It's a much better benefit to the client. The same thing with network and social media advertising. So advertising to your network and advertising on social media, we all know that sometimes takes time. It takes time to have the reach and have things reshared and have it reach a greater network than just the people you know. Again, if you're racing against the clock, you don't often have time. You might put a little blast out on social media and hope that the right person sees it at the right time. But you could be much more intensive with social media if you, again, have time to work on it exclusively. You can get complete market coverage. I don't know why there's a T at the end of that sentence. Sorry. I missed that in my editing. Complete market coverage by working exclusively. And what I mean by that is it allows you to look for the passive and the active job market. And you need to sell that to the client that way. So when they are looking for, when they spread their job out with lots of different agencies, as we know, really they're just getting the active job market. They're really not tapping into any passive market there. It's just candidates that agencies have got ready to go. That's all they're getting, the very top surface level of the market. If they really want to do a full market coverage in terms of looking at, is the person I'm looking for in the market and could we attract them to our business? Again, they've got to allow you the exclusivity to go through the market that way, to tap into the passive channels that you've got, yes, to work with the active ones as well and really explore them and come back to the client with a very detailed shortlist that covers both active and passive candidate markets, not just what's available at the time. Guarantee of a placement solution. We spoke about that earlier in terms of it being a guaranteed solution. That's a benefit. Obviously, as I said, at the end of the day, they want the job filled and they want you to keep working on it as strongly as you do day one, as you might be working on it on day 10, 20 or 30. If it's taking that long. So in order to do that, in order to maintain that level of concentration, activity, focus, motivation, exclusivity is the way to go. This is what you want to say to the client. You want me to work on it exclusively. I used to say to my clients that, put yourself in my shoes. I've got 2 clients who give me a job each, that they're working with me exclusively. I know I'm the only consultant working on them. And I've got 5 jobs from clients who are saying, see who you've got in the database. Where do you think I'm spending my time? Okay, I'm going to do a quick database search for those ones that are contingent, and then I'm going to focus all of my time and effort on the 2 that I know are going to result in a fee. That's where I'm focused. That's where you're getting the best of me. I used to say that to the client. If you want the best of me, then pay appropriately for that. Engage me exclusively, and as I said, even better, pay me a retainer to get started on it. So make sure you're pushing that there's that guaranteed solution at the end of it. The brand impact and reputation is really powerful as a benefit as well. Make sure you mention to your client the impact that going multi, we all know about it. We know that candidates hate it. We know that it sounds bad. We've all done it. You've run a candidate and said, I've got this job. This is what it's like. And the candidate says, oh, is that with Smith & Co? Yeah. Okay. Well, I just spoke to X agency about that. They just called me. And then you go, oh God, I feel like an idiot. Client looks like an idiot. It looks like it's going out to lots of different agencies. They look like they're desperate. So you need to say that to the client. Use that sort of words. Going multi-agency will make your brand seem like it's desperate to fill. You might think it's faster to fill, but it has actually the opposite effect. Candidates get turned off by this. Okay? So get them to think about their reputation and get them to think about their brand impact as a benefit of exclusivity with you. And you can really work with their brand then and explore their brand and help promote their brand. Okay? You can look at ways that you could actually be advertising their brand on their behalf, their culture, extending that out into the market for them. And the benefits in a candidate flooded market are great. If there are a lot of candidates like there are now, for one job, there's a lot of applications because there's a lot of people out of work. It can be a great way to sell, you work with me exclusively because you don't want to be bombarded. You don't want to deal with hundreds of applications yourself or hundreds of other agencies or different agencies sending you lots of different applications. It's a nice, neat way to deal with one agency but still get the solution that you're after. And that's the point you need to make sure you're emphasizing. It still results in the solution and in fact in a better way and sometimes faster, because as I said, that's what I think clients believe. They think, oh, if I just go with one agency, and what if they don't fill it? Okay, you guys have probably heard that. So you want to make sure that you let them know that it's the opposite, actually. It has the opposite effect. If you're in an area where it's not candidate flooded at the moment, you may still be working in a technical space where it's candidate short. Again, exclusivity works. Why? Because you're not going to be able to find the candidates you want. This is a tight market. In order to shift people out of John Holland, I'm going to need to work and build trust with those candidates. I'm going to need to know a lot about you. I'm going to need to work with you exclusively so I can entice them, pardon me, and bring them to the table to your offer, to your opportunity to consider it. That's not going to work if 5 different consultants are calling them. Okay, so either way it works. If it's candidate flooded or if it's candidate short, this model can work. All right, just going to go to the next one and grab a sip of water, excuse me. All right, I want you to think about the terms of this type of arrangement because they may slightly differ in your terms of business, or it may already be covered, but I just want to point these out to you. So the exclusivity arrangement might be before or after others have failed. And I worked for a business who'd actually changed their terms. I'd like to say it was me that did it. It wasn't. It was already that way. But I thought it was really clever. They actually had their terms set up that they were completely exclusive. So we only work with you and we only work with you exclusively. So if you need to run your own process, go and do that and come back to me. Or if you're still dealing with other agencies, we don't have a place in our calendar at the moment. You need to come back to us when it's exclusive. Now, it was a ballsy kind of strategy, because obviously you could potentially lose business that way, or they say, oh, we're not waiting for you to be available. But I found for that agency, they were working 80% of roles, at least 80% of roles exclusive. And that was just them changing their terms to say, this is just how we work. This is how you work if you want to work with us. And it was powerful. Clients responded to that. And they got good quality clients as a result. Those ones that were tire kickers tended to come and go and say, I'm not doing that. But that was okay. They were happy to sort of say, you know, we're not going to take that sort of business on. Maybe we can't be as picky in this market. I get that. So again, this is why I say to you, you might want to think about this being a tailored arrangement for certain clients. But don't be afraid of it being before or after others have failed, including themselves. You know, let the client have a go at it. We all know their track record in most cases for filling their own roles is not great. It's why our industry exists. Think about agreeing to a time frame that's comfortable for both parties. So the exclusivity arrangement might be tied to a particular time frame rather than open-ended. So whilst I said we'll work on it until it is filled, that is true. But in the initial stages of negotiating this with the client, they may feel more comfortable if you say to them, listen, can you give it to me exclusively for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever period of time, depending on their time frame and how urgent it is. What will happen is at that point, you obviously work on it in that 3-week period. And when you get to the end of near the end of the 3-week period, if it isn't still filled yet, you will have built a relationship with the client. You'll hopefully have found some candidates and started sending people through. At the end of the 3-week period, you say to them, are you happy to keep working exclusively? 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. Because they're already invested now. They've invested time and effort with you and gone down partway through the path. Okay, most of the time they will then let you continue to work on it exclusively, or if they are going to go out to another agency, they'll tell you at that point, which you can decide to obviously have the conversation about how it might work from there. So don't be afraid to put a time frame. Don't be afraid to put a tight one on there, 2 or 3 weeks. And that doesn't sound like much for a client. Okay, yep, I can wait for 2 weeks. You might be frightened by 2 weeks and think to yourself, I'm not going to be able to fill it in 2 weeks. But what I'm saying to you is you don't need to fill it. You need to work hard to build a trust relationship and try to fill it. But if you get to the end of the 2 weeks, as I said, you ask them at that point, are you happy to continue working exclusively? And I guarantee you they'll be fine. You want to push for the retainer at every opportunity. As I said, that's the holy grail. Will you work with me exclusively? Here are the benefits of working exclusively. And in order to get started, there's a deposit, you know, there's a deposit payment to get started. That's your commitment to me. That allows me some cash flow to get some advertising done if we need to. It allows me to start making movements on it. The balance is payable, you know, at the end of the process, or a third upon shortlist and balance on completion, whatever your terms are. But try and push for the retainer. Again, if that is delivered by you as the norm, this is how it works, the client is more likely to go, okay, that's fine. I understand that that's how it works. And they're going to get that level. Why would I pay you up front? Well, you're going to get that level of service. Okay, that's what you're actually paying for, to retain me. Okay, to actually make me lock in to filling your position. That's what it's about. Okay. The next part I want to talk about is building a pipeline of these clients. So we spoke about kind of creating the ideal client or identifying the ideal client for this. And you might start with 1 or 2 clients, and that activity we're going to do will do that. But you ideally want to build a pipeline of this kind of work. You want this to be the core of your business and the contingent stuff to be small. You want to be working on 5 really good quality jobs that are exclusive, and just have 2 on the side that you might just see if somebody, you know, comes across your desk. Is there sound issues again?
No, there's a question. I thought
Oh,
I'd come with a question.
okay.
Okay, is there a typical industry, Wolves was asking, is there a typical industry where exclusivity works best, or can you be doing it for any industry?
I believe you can do it in every industry, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about, or I'll mention, I think it's in the next slide, about temp, because it's usually seen as a perm recruitment domain, but I'm going to talk about it in how it applies to temp as well, or contract. So I believe it's perm or temp. In terms of the type of industry, yeah, I do believe that you can work in any industry that way. Again, it's about you positioning yourself as the expert. It's about that sweet spot of where you know the market really well. If anything, where I will say it is difficult is where you're a generalist, where you're trying to be everything and you've got lots of different broad markets that you're trying to work across. I think it is much harder then to be exclusive, much harder to convince the client you're exclusive. The client you're working with might think that's the only industry, and that's the case sometimes, right? You work with a client and they only think you work in that space. You actually work across 3 different others. So that's okay, as long as they believe that, you could sell it that way. But I do believe it's harder. So hopefully I've answered that question. So coming back to building the pipeline, as I said, it's talking about identifying that ideal client and knowing how to recognize them when they come along. You need to be the expert in your space. You need to look at, as I said, that tailored client-centric model. So put yourself in the client's shoes, think about what are the kinds of elements of the service that they're after, and build those in. In most cases, they're not difficult things. They're not things that you either shouldn't be doing already or couldn't do to build in. Okay, so it might be about contact points. It might be about something as simple as you participating on the interview panel. You writing the interview guide for them and interview questions for them to use, or for you to be on the panel and chair an interview for them. I mean, any of us could do that. Do we offer that service? We don't offer that service most of the time. But think about from the client's perspective. A lot of times they're not expert recruiters. They're nervous about doing this. They actually don't like it. They don't want to do it. It's painful to them. So if you can drive the process on something that you already know you can do and love to do, and you're going to get a better outcome by driving it that way, think about those kind of elements of what you do that could add that extra, as I said, that extra level of service. Put yourself in the client's shoes. Think about what are their key decision drivers. Understand what it is that's going to be powerful to your client. So coming back to that question, could it apply to any industry? Yes, you need to know what the drivers are for that industry. What are the important decision-making elements for your client for that industry that might make them consider working with you exclusively? Could you go and work on site? I've done that before. Have any of you done that before? Go and work on site at your client's site for a day. Right? There's nothing stopping us doing that. It's powerful. You get a better idea of culture. You get to know people on the site. They're not going to let you do that unless it's exclusive, because they don't want every consultant there. So it turns a relationship into a different. They're not going to ditch you halfway through the process once you've invested that time. So think about these kind of little extras you could be adding that will help, as I said, sell this almost as a premium service. It's almost looking at exclusivity as this is the premium service. And that's what you want to say to the clients. We've got this premium service. You look like a client that wants premium service. Let me tell you about this program, this package, this deal. Who doesn't want that, right? Once you do that, once you turn left on the plane, you can't turn right again. That's what you want. You know what I'm meaning by that reference if you're old enough. They don't have left and right anymore, but you know. Vanessa's laughing at me. She always laughs at my old lady jokes. Know your value. This is a really important one. I want to stress this one. Know your value and be confident with this. I truly believe that my ability to sell exclusive work throughout my career has been based on the fact of my confident delivery and belief in my own value. Belief in the value of my expertise and what I was bringing to the table, and being able to influence somebody else and convince somebody else that was tangible, that was real. Here's what you're getting. As I said, you don't sit there and question your lawyer or question your accountant about how good they are, where they you know, where they got their degree, and what, you know, what kind of cases they've been involved in. Well, you might, with a lawyer, you might want to make sure that they've done a case like yours and it's not new. But we can do that really easily. We can prove our value there. But if you don't believe your own value, you will never convince a client to accept it. It starts with you believing, I am absolutely worth this. And then when you deliver it to the client, they'll believe it as well. Okay, that's the biggest barrier for most recruiters, I find. It's not what I'm telling you in the how-to. The how-to you might have already known. You absolutely have to believe that this is the way that you should be working. Be paid for every bit of work that you're doing. And when you really believe that, you'll be able to sell this much more frequently than you might be now. Also, when you're actually delivering it, this is just a little negotiation tip. You ask for the business this way. You say, this is the premium service. This looks like the ideal role for it. Here's why I think it's valuable to you. As a client, I know this is what you value. Here's the premium service I'm going to offer you. This is all the things you're going to get in it. These are all the benefits you're going to derive from it. So how about we go exclusive? Ask, then don't speak. It is the most powerful tool in negotiation. If some of you already know this, but the next person to speak after you make the offer and you ask for the business, the next person to speak will give. Okay, the next person to say something will actually have to compromise. So you want to ask and you want to hold your ground. It's totally uncomfortable. All right, I tell you, it's really uncomfortable because you sit there and you go, I want this, and, you know, I've sold it all, you've done your pitch. How about it? And it's as uncomfortable as that silence I'm leaving. That's why I'm leaving that pause to show you. But if you speak again and you keep talking, you're likely then to start talking yourself out of it, talking them out of it, and you will bring up the contingent option at that point because you'll start to see the doubt. Let them tell you if they're doubtful. Let them tell you what their concerns are and then address those and keep going back. Okay? So confident delivery, ask and don't speak again. If you're on the phone, it's hard. They'll think you've fallen asleep, but just ask the point, ask for the business that way, and then hold your breath. People say to me, it won't work for temp. It doesn't work. This doesn't work for temp or contract work. You can't get exclusivity. And I challenge you on that. I challenge you. I've just put 2 graphics there kind of as a reminder around this. It already does. I challenge you to say this. It already does. How often are clients going to multiple agencies with a temp order? Sometimes they do. Sometimes in the first instance they might. But once they establish a relationship with you and a trust with you, and there's a regularity of service there, most often than not, they keep coming back to you. That's an exclusive arrangement where they're coming to you first. If you have clients that work with you first for temp work, then that is an exclusive arrangement. Okay? The most important factor for temp, we know, is to fill it with the right skill at speed. So it becomes about fastest finger first. That's my little guy with his finger up, right? It becomes about fastest finger first. Who can get me the person and get me the person really quick? But you can still ask for an exclusive period for contract or temp work, and you can build up the number of roles for there. Ask it for on one role. Ask it for one where the time isn't as critical. Where they've called you first, say to them, listen, I want you to give me 24 hours. Give me 24 hours to come back to you. So it's a shorter period of time for temp, but give me 24 hours. If I can't fill it, all you've lost is a day. But I'm really confident I can fill this one, and I don't want you to have to run around to lots of different agencies. You're going to list it where you're going to now spend the next couple of hours having to ring other agencies and give the brief. Let me save you that time. Honestly, I feel so confident that I can fill it. 24 hours, I'll have candidates on your desk, or I'll have somebody in the job. All right? That confident delivery. So you can do this in temp. I absolutely believe it. All right, how are we going for time now? We're going to get into my activity. So we're almost done, guys, if I'm going all right for time. Am I, Tony? Yep, good. Okay, so this is where you need your pen and paper. This is for you only. We're going to work through this activity because I want you to come away from this today starting to put some bones down in terms of how you might apply this. So I first want you to, on the top of your piece of paper, I want you to put down a name of one of your clients, all right, that you're not working with exclusively, obviously. Where the idea is, the aim of this activity is to try to work out clients we can work with exclusively and how we're going to do it. So put the top of your paper, who is a client that you'd like to work with exclusively, that you think is a good candidate based on what we talked about with the ideal client, someone that you've just started a relationship with, perhaps as well. So put the client name at the top of your page. The next thing I want you to answer underneath that, question 2, is, do they see you as an expert? Be really honest about this. How have you actually proven to them that you're an expert? They may have come across you on LinkedIn because you're posting a lot of copy around a particular topic and it's positioned you as an expert. They may have been referred to you. You may have pitched yourself that way from the very start. Your marketing may be that way. Your whole website may be built geared towards that. So answer the question honestly. Do they see you as an expert? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, as I said, have a think about those ways that occurred. If the answer is no, how could you improve that? How do you position yourself as an expert to the client? One that you're already working with. Think about that. Or one that you started a relationship. It might be a prospect, but how can you make sure that that client knows that you're an expert? The answer to the question is you need to tell them. And you need to tell them in different ways, not by just telling them, not by picking up the phone or doing a client visit and doing your sales pitch. That's only one element of it. It's multidimensional here. You need to make sure that they see you as the expert. The social proof element is there. So those of you that replied to my question about what areas are you in, what industries, if I ask one of you now, I'm not going to do it, so don't worry, but if I ask one of you, tell me what that industry was. Tell me the area that you call yourself a specialist in. I'll pick on Vanessa. I'm not asking you to say anything, Vanessa, but I know your space. So you guys are experts in that creative recruitment space. Does the client see you that way? Have they come to you because of that speciality? Have they come to you because they just did a Google search and they don't have any other social proof around it? Yeah. You guys, I know, work really heavily in that space. And so I've used you as an example because creative recruiters do that. They position themselves in that space all the time. It's all of their branding. It's what it's about. I know a lot of people do that, but you need to make sure that this client you're talking about, the one you've written at the top of your page, sees you as the expert, and if not, then position yourself that way. Send them information, make sure your social, your website, everything is geared towards making sure this client says, there's no doubt in my mind that if I needed to find a procurement expert, I would go to that agency. Or if I need to find a civil engineer in this particular sector, that's where I would go. All right. So make sure they understand that you may have to give away a lot of information and IP. And, that's why people have, white papers and ebooks and salary surveys around sectors. They do reports on sectors. All of that is about building your knowledge and expertise in that space. If you've got access to that kind of stuff, that's the stuff you want to put in front of your client. Here's what I know about your industry. Even better still, think about what could you do to provide that kind of as a tailored report to your client. So what about meeting with a client, or maybe it's a client and you've met with, what about preparing a brief document that gives them a synopsis of the market that they're in, where they sit in the market, and what risks they might have in talent pooling, talent searching in the months ahead? Right? That's something actually most of you probably already know about your clients in your head. Think about packaging that up and delivering that to your client. That's a pretty powerful piece of information, okay, that they may not be aware of. Again, positioning yourself to them as the expert. So how can you improve it? If you already do it well, I've given you some ideas there of how you could do it better. Hopefully you've jotted those down under 3. Question 4 is, have you offered something new or different to this client or unexpected? Okay, so how can you delight the client? Most organizations who've dealt with recruitment agencies understand how we work. Our terms are all really similar, and our service offering is really similar for the most part. Today, we've spoken about some different ways to provide different service. Think about those. Do they fit your model? Could you do those? Could you try it with one client? Okay, it might not be a model that you could do across all your client base, but could you go and work on site with a client for a day or two? Could you look at doing a PD health check of their position descriptions, or something that you've got knowledge of that you could offer as a slightly different element of service to add in and to package this? Okay, to try and shift it from I've been working with you transactionally, you're just the recruiter, to now I'm going to offer you some of these other things, and I'm going to shift this into an exclusive arrangement. Suddenly what I get from you as a recruiter actually surpasses anybody else I've dealt with. And a lot of us are working in non-competing spaces. We can all use the same idea, but across in our different areas. So think about that. Have I offered something new or different? And think about what could you offer. If anyone's willing to share that when we open the phone lines in a minute, feel free to do that. As I said, you know, yes, we're competitors, but often in cases we're not competing in the same area. And what do they want? What does the customer actually want? And how can you package that, as I said, into an exclusive deal? So if you're having trouble selling your standard service exclusively, think about what can I add into the package that doesn't cost me anything to make the exclusive deal the premium service. And as I said, they could be very small things that you already could offer, that you already could do without very much cost at all. Okay. Could you help with a social media campaign when you're advertising the job for them, that they then actually are able to push out through their network? Simple stuff, right? Really simple to create some stuff for their social media, to create a video maybe that they could use, that kind of stuff, right? So think about what are the things you could add in, little or no cost, that actually beef up the offering to say, this is the exclusive deal that you're going to get. You've got to work with me exclusively to do that. And there's a fee up front, a deposit to get started. Okay. So think about what do they want and how could I add it to the exclusive deal? And now the final one to make you take away from here, when will you present this to them? Lock yourself into a date. Write this down on the bottom of that page. You've got a client name at the top. You've got some ideas hopefully jotted down about how you might be able to sell the exclusive arrangement to them next time that they have an order, or you're going to go and talk to them about it. Now you're going to commit to a time frame. It's to yourself. You're not going to show that to me. I'm not going to check it all off for you, but make the commitment. Write this date down and go and put it in your diary. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get off this call with Adele and I'm going to actually take something and take action of it. That makes the training even more powerful. You spent your money, you've spent your time to be here. Make use of it. All right. So that's my activity. I've said at the end, the more you ask, the more you get. There is a little bit of a numbers to this. We've just done this with one client. You might want to do this with a number of clients. Think about who are your top 5 or 10 clients in terms of ones that could be potentials for exclusivity, and do this activity with each of them. Ask those 5 or 6 questions. If you want copies of the slide at the end, Tony will be able to give that to you. But ask those questions, write down the answers to each of them for those top 5 clients, and ask all of them. The more clients you ask, the more you'll get. As I said, there is a bit of a numbers element to it. Not every client you'll be able to convert to exclusivity, but you've got to keep asking for it. If you do it well, you will do it often. I promise you that. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling, as I said, it's that confident delivery of going, this is what I'm worth and this is the service and this is what you get. Clients will then buy it. The more clients that buy it, the more clients that you'll be able to sell it to again. Okay, so it's that self-fulfilling prophecy of doing it well, even once, will allow you a case study to be able to go again. It'll allow you a reference. Okay. Don't be afraid to talk to a new client and say, I've just worked exclusively with a great outcome with this client over here. Would you like to speak to them? Most clients will do that for you. Most clients will give you that sort of reference, that internal referral. So do it well. Exclusive business requires exclusive service. We've covered that. So if you're going to do this, you need to treat each assignment like it's the only one you've got. And in this market, maybe it is. Maybe there's only a few you've got. So out-service them now. Give them some of that service. Say to the clients that you're already working with that maybe doesn't want to pay for the premium or doesn't want to pay the retainer. Say to them, listen, I'm trialing a new model of service here. I've been working with you for a year. I'm gonna give you the premium service on this job so that you can give me some feedback and maybe a testimonial around it, and you can give me an idea of whether this sort of service is valuable to you. Do a free tester one and over-service that client with your exclusive offer, with your exclusive service, get their feedback. You'll find next time they go to do it, they'll go, I really liked that. I really like the extras I got with that service. I'm going to pay you next time to do it that way. I much prefer it. Okay? And if they don't say it that way, you'll be saying, if you like the service, you know, please buy it again. They'll say, I want it for free, or want it for what I'm getting now. No, that's the premium service. If you want it, it's exclusive. So exclusive business requires exclusive service. The candidate's feedback, I don't underestimate the candidate's feedback to the client. So what I mean by that is think about the way you're dealing with the candidate as an extension of the way you're dealing with the client. And I know a lot of you know this. I know a lot of you say, oh, yep, we treat candidates really well, and that's an important part of our ethos and the way we work. But I'm talking about your client absolutely sitting there in front of your candidate and going, you know, what do you think of Vanessa at Creative? Okay. What is she like? What did she tell you about the job? What did she tell you about us? Okay. You're being tested and interviewed by your client to the candidate. Don't ever forget that. Okay. So whilst the candidate's got to impress you and you're making an assessment about whether they're suitable and you're being very nice and warm and personable in dealing with them, make sure you're very professional and you're giving a level of service that you would expect to be put on show in front of the client. Okay, so don't forget that. The candidate's feedback goes back to your client. You need to be consulting at every opportunity. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. Most of you guys on this call are reasonably senior. We've moved past that transactional recruitment model, but I guarantee you still allow it with some clients. It gets through on all of us. There are some clients that we still allow to treat us as a recruiter, you know, just the agency, transactional. Okay. Don't stand for it. Hold our ground on the level of service and your value, right? Consult at every opportunity. There's a difference in the service you provide. You know it. You're professionals in your space. Make sure that you keep emphasizing that and keep reminding the client of that. Regular contact I talk about. If you're going to do this, you absolutely have to upstep your level of contact. This isn't exclusive service, and exclusive business is not going to be maintained if you act like you would when you're running 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's a high contact program, right? So regular contact every couple of days, actually. All right. That sounds like a lot for some of you, but if you haven't got the stomach for it, then don't start it. You're going to have to keep in contact with all the candidates, with the client, and with every element of the service. You'll be touching it every day and keeping in contact every second day potentially. So regular and high volume, you know, high touch contact. Data and statistics, and what I mean by this one in terms of doing it well, remember that you're collecting a lot of information about the process and about the market in this. So think about making sure you remind the client of that through the process. So I used to love giving the clients, part of my regular contact updates with them was about what was actually going on and what feedback I was getting from the market. An actual summary, a table, a statistical table of what kind of feedback or how many people had said yes and why or no. You know, we know we're going around contacting candidates all the time. There are a number of candidates who say no to the opportunity, right? We ring them and we say, what about this opportunity? And they say no. We know the reasons why. Do we tell the client that every time? That's the kind of data I'm talking about. Do you tell your client about what candidates are saying about them in the market? They could have reputational issues. It could be that the salary is too low. We say that to the client. Oh, we think the salary that you're offering is making it really tight. The market is demanding a higher salary. Be definitive about those results. You don't have to put the candidate's full name. You can put the candidate's first name or identify them some other way. Say this candidate said this candidate said that. Give them that data. It helps to build, again, this body of knowledge that you have about the market and helps to tie the client into you. And you've got access to this information. So use those data and stats through that contact process. It is a long-term sales strategy, I will say, in terms of selling exclusivity. You can't just wake up today and say, right, I'm going to sell exclusive business. I'm going to give it a try tomorrow. I've written my date down that Adele told me to. And okay, next week it failed. And so, yeah, all right, what else are we going to do? All right, it's a long-term sales strategy. Commit to this, commit to it strongly, hone your skills in it, keep trying to do it, and you'll get better at it. And the last point I make there is about confidence again. So as I said, if you don't believe in it, you will never convince your client to buy it from you that way. You'll never be able to upsell to that exclusive arrangement, to that. And we're not even talking a higher fee. It's often the same fee. You're charging the same fee. You just want them to list it with you exclusively. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for being an attendee at Consultants Table. I open the floor now for questions. My contact details are on there if anybody wishes to contact me after the session, but please, I open the floor for questions, comments, anything that anybody would like to share about today's session.